Do you know of a stellar leader or an outstanding organization that deserves a proper shout-out? Nominate them for IBJ's awards. From 40 in their 40s and Women of Influence to Nonprofit and Healthcare Excellence Awards, we're celebrating rising stars, seasoned leaders, and organizations making a difference. Discover which programs are accepting nominations now at ibj.com/nominate.
This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the afternoon of Monday, December 22nd, 2025. I'm Alex Brown. The University of Notre Dame, Fort Wayne-based Parkview Health, and the 1842 Fund are joining forces to build new venture-backed companies aimed at solving persistent healthcare challenges in rural communities. 1842 Fund partner Mike Jocelyn says the goal is to translate research and frontline health system experience into companies that can improve access to care and create economic activity for rural healthcare providers.
The gap in the market that we see is like a lot of the solutions are built for big, complex, large health systems and payers. No one's really building for the small to medium-sized business, which this really is in a lot of these rural areas. So we are essentially trying to get people to focus on problems that matter.
Under the partnership, the organizations plan to co-create up to 2 digital health startups with an initial $1 million investment available and plans to launch in 2026. The Michigan City Redevelopment Commission last week voted to deny another extension of the development agreement for the planned $311 million SoLa mixed-use development. Citing an inability by the project's developer to secure financing, the city said the agreement will expire at the end of the year. While the developer still aims to complete the project, the city said it will explore other development opportunities at the site. The River Ridge Commerce Center in southern Indiana has reached a notable milestone, 20 million square feet of developed building space. Executive Director Mark Hildebrand said the milestone highlights both the strength of the market and the confidence that major employers place in the business park. From the number one source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has issued a warning to Denmark-based drug maker Novo Nordisk over what it calls significant violations at the company's Catalent Indiana plant in Bloomington.
In a letter to Novo Nordisk's CEO, the FDA says the plant's operation did not meet current good manufacturing practice regulations for finished pharmaceuticals. The FDA's letter, dated November 20th, says beginning in August 2023, there were more than 20 instances of mammalian hair, later identified as cat hair, being found around the stoppers of some vials that may have come in contact with the drug product in those vials. The company did not initiate timely investigations in response to this contamination, the agency says, adding that while the plant's quality unit did attempt to cull out contaminated units, some batches were released for distribution to customers. The FDA says Novo Nordisk identified that the cat hair likely came from the stopper suppliers. The letter also states that the company failed to initiate timely and thorough investigations into unexplained batch terminations and also failed to establish and follow written procedures to prevent microbiological contamination of drug products. The FDA instructed Novo Nordisk to correct any violations promptly, and failure to do so could result in regulatory or legal action, as well as cause the FDA to withhold export certificates. Abriana Herron, Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita announced today that Indiana consumers are expected to share about $10.5 million under a nationwide settlement of antitrust allegations against Google. The payments would come from a pending $700 million settlement reached in 2023 between Google and a bipartisan coalition of 53 attorneys general over allegations that Google unlawfully monopolized Android app distribution and in-app payment processing through the Google Play Store. In addition to consumer payments, Indiana is expected to receive about $1.4 million in penalties from Google, with final figures to be updated in the coming weeks. Governor Mike Braun says his economic development strategy focused on Main Street businesses is working. Citing GDP stats that show Indiana outperforming neighboring states, he answers critics who suggest the strategy is at the expense of big economic development deals.
Are we going to be open for business? We certainly are. Are we going to be looking for the larger companies that we need? We certainly are. But we're not going to have all our eggs in that basket. Also, existing businesses that have been here invested. We want to make sure that we take a little broader look and that we do look at the regional capabilities.
You can watch our extended interview with Braun from last weekend's Inside Indiana Business Television at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Catch up on the latest episodes of the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, and entertainment, and beyond. Available now on the IBJ Media app or your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.
What happens when a basketball superstar changes the course of an entire city? I'm Mickey Shuey, and in Beyond Clarkonomics, we tell the story of how Caitlin Clark's arrival to the Indiana Fever sparked more than just sold-out arenas. It's rewriting Indianapolis's long-term strategy for sports, downtown growth, and women's leadership. Listen at ibjpodcast.com or on your favorite podcast app.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media podcast network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.